Okay, so welcome everybody. Glad to have everybody here. Tonight, really, we're going to be going through a lot of different things to get you guys going on the right track as far as making resolutions work, making sure that they actually happen, making sure that you have the basic tools. And some of this stuff is going to be, I'm sure, things that you've already learned, somewhere along the way. But if you're anything like me, you got to hear something like 20, 30, 60 times before we actually put it into action, right? So some of the things you might be learning new tonight, but some of it may be redundant. But nonetheless, when we put it into action, it works. These are proven techniques to make sure that you actually follow through and you can start to transform your life this year and make it really the best ever. And that's really what it's all about, because what's going on right now as far as the economy and everything else goes, right? You see it everywhere. So for a lot of people, this is not a good time, correct? But we have the ability to make this the best year ever. In reality, we have the ability, because changing ourselves doesn't cost us really anything. If you look at the basic fundamental things, it doesn't cost us anything. You have every single thing that you need within yourself or within your reach to make that transformation happen. And above anything else, you may not be able to change some of the outside factors, but you have all the control over what happens inside, about what happens to yourself. So hopefully this will help you drive, and make those changes so that this literally can be your best year ever. I plan on making it one of my best years ever. So despite everything that's going on, we have the ability to change that. So here's the things that we're going to be covering specifically. Tonight you're going to see clearly why 99% or more of resolutions, and that's throughout the year. It's not just the New Year's resolutions, but just resolutions in general. Those choices that people make to change something, why those fail, and they don't ever really become something part of your life. The next thing, understand the real cost of failure in producing results. We see the short term, a lot of times. We identify that, I'd like to lose 30 pounds. That's one of the common ones, is lose weight. So we see the short term, I don't lose the 30 pounds. But what is really the long-term cost of that? There's something that needs to be looked at there, the price and the promise. If most of us really knew what the price was in these things, I think we'd see a lot more change out there. So, this is getting you to pause and think about what the real cost of any failures are, of whatever your resolutions are. Uncover the driving force that will lead to your resolution. What are those driving things that really make it work? Learn a simple formula for attacking the most common resolutions, and then gain a clear vision that will not just create temporary change for you, but will really last a lifetime. And that's going to be beyond or different from what most of you think. So here we go. Resolution versus revolution. Let's just start by looking at really what the definition of resolution is. Okay, a New Year's resolution is a commitment that an individual makes to a project or the reforming of a habit, and often a lifestyle change that is generally interpreted as advantageous, right? Okay, so there's, dissecting the point behind that, you got to look at the key words there: commitment, habit, and lifestyle. Because a lot of times we look at resolutions as, this is just something I'm going to do for the first of the year, right? So these resolutions are something that we tackle as an idea to start the year off. But all this talks about is what? Something that lasts. So let's just look at those individual terms here. First of all, commitment. And you can see why these resolutions fail by definition. Relationships. In America, 50% of first marriages, 67% of second marriages, and 74% of third marriages end in divorce. Scary, huh? So the commitment in relationships isn't there. How about finances? The top 10% of American households own over 86% of all financial assets, while 90% of the American people have little or no net financial assets. 90%. So financially, there's something going on with commitment, right? How about health? Let's just talk about health for a second. How many people have heart disease and cancer? Anybody know the stat? 5 out of 6. 5 out of 6 people have heart disease or cancer. That's what's going to kill 5 out of 6 people. So in a room this big, we might have 2 that don't die from heart disease or cancer. Diabetes, prediabetes, 1 out of 4 people are either diagnosed or will be diagnosed with diabetes or prediabetes. That's what they're saying right now. And what are happening to the numbers? Are they getting better or getting worse? They're getting worse every year. What do we see happening in kids now? We see diseases happening in kids that never happened before. So clearly there's something going on with our level of commitment to our health, to ourself, right? And this is really the big problem here, because, in terms of relationships and finances, those depend on a multitude of issues, right? I mean, there's got to be a level of commitment on multiple parts. But really, there's only one person that controls our health. It's us. That can't be put on anybody else. So there's a difference between interest and commitment. When you're interested in doing something, you do it only when circumstances permit. We call that the environment, being affected by the environment, right? That we make a decision because the environment's good. We buy a car because our environment changed and we got a raise. Or people stop buying, people stop spending money and the economy slows down because the environment out there has changed. So even wealthy individuals who have enough money to last a lifetime, never working again, they stop spending because the environment changed. So the environment is a big factor for most people. I mean, that's really the driving force, unfortunately. And the news doesn't make it any better, right? The news drives that mentality. So when you're interested in doing something, you do it only when circumstances permit. When you're committed to something, you accept no excuses, only results, period. That was Ken Blanchard. So we got to start looking at it. Are we interested in the things that we want, or are we committed to the things that we want? Because they're 2 totally different things. And that has to come down to a decision, right? So next thing, habits. Definition: a habit is an acquired pattern of behavior that often occurs automatically. Now, I underline these 2 words, acquired and automatically, because you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be together, right? That if you have to acquire it, how is it automatic? But you have to make it acquired in order to make it automatic. So I want to read this to you. Habitual activity changes neural activity patterns in a specific region of the brain when habits are formed. Okay, these neural patterns created by habits can be changed or altered. But when a stimulus from the old days returns, the dormant pattern can reassert itself, putting an individual in a neural state akin to being on autopilot. Okay, that study was out of MIT. Now, we read that, and if you're anything like me, you immediately start thinking about bad habits, right? We read that and we automatically assume we're talking about bad habits here. That if we smoke for 10 years and we quit, and then all of a sudden you wind up in a bar with some friends, and what happens? Next thing you know, you got a cigarette hanging out of your mouth. Or the alcoholic who has drank for 20, 30 years, and then they get put into a situation at a wedding where somebody throws them a round of shots, and all of a sudden they start drinking again. You see these things happen all the time, and we think bad habits. But why not good habits? Why don't we read this in terms of good habits? Because they work the same way, don't they? If we can just get to the point where we've changed those neural patterns, those neural associations, where we've literally trained our brain to think differently than ourselves now or everybody else, and we get those neural patterns changed, then all it takes is a little stimulus and knowing what that stimulus is that you need, and all of a sudden, bang, you're right back on course. So just think about that for a second. You train yourself to exercise every single day, right? And you literally train your brain to enjoy exercise. Okay, you make neural associations where instead of you're out and you're running and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm out of oxygen and my legs hurt and oh, I've got so much to do and all this other stuff, instead of focusing on that, you train yourself to make the neural associations of the beautiful weather, the feeling of the air pumping through your lungs, the feeling of flying down the street, whatever it is, you make those neural associations and you train on that until it becomes a habit, and then you just get off track somewhere, because of Christmas, right? Christmas comes along and everything gets ramped off from what, Halloween through New Year's Eve, typically is the Christmas season. So everything gets derailed during that time. But then all you have to do is make that one little simple neural association of seeing somebody running on TV or something like that, and immediately you go back to that habit, back to that pattern. So the real issue there is that we just haven't got, in a lot of cases, we don't have that commitment long enough to make it habit. But once it becomes habit, it becomes easy, right? Do we think about brushing our teeth? Or any of those daily activities that just literally we can call ritualistic? We just do them. So making the most important things in your life a ritual, that's really what gets things done. But that requires forming these habits. So habit is either the best of servants or the worst of masters. Is that not true? I mean, it can play either way for us. That comes down to what? Choice. We've got to make the choice which route we're going to play more to. So let's look at lifestyle. Americans spend about 90% of their food budgets on processed foods. That was, if you guys haven't seen that movie, Fast Food Nation, or read the book, you need to go and rent it. I'd say the movie isn't nearly as good as the book. The movie was kind of interesting, but read the book definitely. 66.3% of adults aged 20 years and over are either overweight or obese. Nearly 67% overweight or obese. Now let's look at what that means. What does overweight or obese mean? Well, overweight can literally mean just 7 pounds over your ideal body weight. How much is 7 pounds? It's not much at all, right? Yet the research says that if you just go 7 pounds overweight from what your natural is, I think you've doubled your risk of type 2 diabetes. Just 7 pounds. And if you go 14 pounds over, we go through this information, this kind of stuff, these stats in the Maximize Living Makeover, but 14 pounds over, it like triples your risk of heart attack and stroke. So I mean, we're not talking 30, 40, 50, 60 pounds here. But, for most of America, is that not the case? I mean, it's way over that limit. So here's the even scarier thing. 19% of children 6 to 19 are either overweight or obese. 19%. 1 out of every 5 kids is overweight or obese. I had a patient come in here just yesterday. A young girl works in a daycare. And she said that she hurt her back. And I said, well, okay, how'd you hurt your back? I was picking up a 40-pound kid. And I'm thinking like a 6-7-year-old, something like that, or at least 4 or 5, right? I mean, I've got a 4-year-old and I don't think he weighs 40 pounds. And she says, no, he was 1 year old. And I'm thinking, you're crazy. 1 year old and they weigh 40 pounds? I mean, I don't even know how that's possible. But that's happening all the time now. They don't realize, these parents don't realize what they're doing to their kids. I mean, literally, the research is out everywhere showing that these kids are showing plaquing in their arteries younger than the double digits. I'm talking like 7, 8, 9 years old. On autopsies, they're showing plaquing in their arteries. Can you imagine your daughter having plaquing happening in her arteries right now and not knowing about it? But that's what's happening with these parents. They don't know what's happening to their kids. It's unbelievable. We're seeing younger and younger and younger, all these chronic illnesses, cancer, and I mean, it's crazy. So success is literally to live your life in a way that causes you to feel a ton of pleasure and very little pain. And because of your lifestyle, have the people around you feel more pleasure than they do pain. Have you ever picked up the phone from somebody and you see who is on the caller ID and you don't pick it up? Have you ever thought about that? Why does that happen?
Because either make you up or down.
Yeah. Scary, ain't it? Yeah, I mean that's an interesting fact, isn't it? I mean it's just fascinating how you can look at us at a caller ID and you can decide if you want to pick that up or not. So that's a self-training point there. Is to go home and reflect on that at the end of the night. How many calls do I get picked up on? Am I really a blessing to people, or are they not picking up the phone? It's really bad when when the caller ID rings and it plays the ringtone from Star Wars. The Emperor, the Imperial March. Not good. So, you want your success to be to the point where your life is literally translating into other lives, to where you're now becoming a blessing to others. That's what success is. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with power. I mean, is that not real power? Being able to help transform other people's lives and making their life better just because you're around them? That's that's the real deal there. So, in looking at that again, what is the real cost then of not meeting those resolutions? If we see that those are long-term things and that they all play into lifestyle and creating habits and meaning long-lived things that actually result in play or reflection throughout the rest of your life, what's the real cost? What about financially? What's the cost financially? Let's say that your resolution is the common one, to lose 20 pounds or 15 pounds, in the next 3 months, and you don't achieve that reality. Well, what happens the next time you decide that you want to lose 15, 20 pounds? Well, gosh, I failed once. Maybe I won't even make a resolution this year. Is that not the case? That happens a lot now. People don't even make resolutions because they know that resolutions fail. You see it, I mean, they joke about it on TV all the time, that resolutions always fail, so why even do them? So that's kind of the mentality that we've approached, and that's huge too, because, every successful person I know, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Donald Trump, I mean, these are guys, they don't quit. Is it any surprise why they're massively successful? I heard Jim Rohn say one time on one of his training programs to consider the ant. That the life of an ant never quits. You can put a shoe in the way, you can put a box in the way, you can throw down this and throw down that. They will not stop. They don't know how to stop and sit still. They will find a way around. I mean, if you've ever tried to battle ant trails in a house or anything like that, you'll know what I'm talking about. I mean, you cannot stop them. They will find a way to get through. So financially, if you don't meet that goal, that 15 pounds, well, then the next time you come around to it, you might need to lose 20 pounds or 30 pounds or 40 pounds, and it keeps going and going and going. What's the cost of diabetes? What's the cause of the heart attacks and the strokes and the cholesterol medications and the blood pressure medications and everything else that's a result of that? I mean, we're just talking financially here. We're not even talking about life lost. So the cost of just that little goal not met is tremendous. I mean, it's so far bigger than what we could ever really consider, what we could really ever think. And then as far as relationships, what's the cost of relationships? What happens if you die 20 years early? Not around for your wife, right?
She get paid.
Yeah, she get paid, sure. If you got life insurance, yeah. Yeah, but she wouldn't have a relationship. Kind of goes away when in the long run of things, if we don't have those goals that we set out, it affects relationships. Think about that. This is an interesting thing too. Young, newlyweds, we have all these big dreams, big goals and everything. And what do you see happening a lot with relationships as time goes on? They kind of drift apart because what really happens is that psychologically they see that those dreams dissipate. Is that not true? I mean, they see those dreams dissipate in that person, and so it becomes less sexy. So if there's all these big dreams and big motivations and big ideas of a life ahead of you that you're going to be able to do this, this, and this, that looks great and it sounds exciting. And then as time goes on, those dreams start to fade and dissipate, and you see things going down a different course, and interest starts getting lost. That's a big factor. I mean, this is true psychological stuff. There's been studies on this stuff. So it all comes back down to the simple little goals. What about life? We already talked about that. Life, you lose your life. It doesn't get any more dramatic than that. If you lose your life, it's over. So what is the driving force? Have you found your hot button? We use that term hot button because that means what drives you. See, a lot of times when we sit down and we think about a resolution of some kind, I want to lose 15 pounds. It goes about as far as this. I want to lose 15 pounds because the scale will have a lower number on it, right? It's just like, it's not a real thing. It's just like, well, I'd like to see that scale go down a little bit. But what does that mean? What does that really mean? See, you haven't found the hot button, so if you don't find that hot button, it's probably not going to happen, because who really cares in the end about a needle on a scale? Or digital numbers, I guess. We're out of those days, right? So here's the 6 fundamental psychological needs of people. And this is big, because if you can identify each of these things with your goal, you'll make it happen. These are the 6 fundamental needs. Number 1, certainty in life. Everybody needs certainty. Why is everybody going crazy right now? Because there's no certainty. Because everything is so uncertain because of the economy and everything else, that they're not sure if they're going to have jobs tomorrow. They're not sure what their bills are going to look like, if they have enough money to pay the bills, everything else. If they're going to have a job tomorrow. So you've got everybody, freaking out and being scared because there's that lack of certainty. So certainty is an essential need. At the same time, though, this is weird. Uncertainty is actually a fundamental need. You can't have complete certainty. It's like the person who is manic, what do they call it? Obsessive compulsive, that just does everything right and has everything detailed and all the time, and then the spouse goes off and goes off in a different direction, because there was so much certainty there that the need for uncertainty actually drove them off in a different direction. So, there's a fundamental need for uncertainty there too. And that's all about discovery, having something new, letting go of the tightrope and jumping off for the next bar. We need that. It's part really of growth. The next thing here is significance. You got to have significance in life. There's nothing that causes, Jim Rohn again, said this other thing, there's nothing that I believe causes more mental problems than the lack of significance, than not really accomplishing anything. Because that just destroys a mind. If your brain sees that nothing is being accomplished, that nothing is there, can you see how that leads to depression? And what do we see running rampant right now? Depression is just it's just through the roof. They're the #1 class of drugs sold in the United States. Antidepressants are. Next one there, conviction and love. Everybody needs to have conviction and love. Even inmates, prison members, they all need conviction and love. That's a fundamental need. Growth. We have to have growth. You've got to be doing something new all the time. And then the last thing, contribution. Everybody needs to contribute. These are all just fundamental needs. And see, if we just look at a resolution of losing 30 pounds and it's just about a needle going on a scale, it's probably not going to happen. But think about it this way. If you could look at, well, if I lose 30 pounds, I can be certain that my health is going to improve and I'm adding years onto my life. But at the same time, I'm going to look a whole lot better, if I get down to my ideal body weight and put on a little bit more muscle and I look a little bit better, that might actually land a better job somewhere. That might actually lead to a better relationship somewhere. And, and because of that, I'm going to gain some significance out of life and probably get a little bit of growth too. And out of that, now I can begin to contribute to the charities that I want to more and be able to contribute more time to my family. So if we sit down and we identify each of those aspects and how it addresses that particular goal, you see the power that you can get out of that real quick. And now you've got that driving force to push you forward and make sure that it happens. You won't let anything get in the way. If the desire is strong enough, if the purpose is strong enough, there is nothing that is going to stand in your way. Think about the last time that you wanted something really, really bad. You probably got it, right? If you really, really wanted a motorcycle and your wife really didn't want you to get a motorcycle, you probably got the motorcycle anyways. or the new shirt, or the new car, whatever it is, or new set of cabinets. I don't know. I mean, it could be anything, but in most cases, you find a way. If the desire is strong enough, you'll find a way to make that happen. It's amazing how that works. It's literally called the law of attraction. So, for what reasons do you want to see change? And take a moment tonight and actually look through these. Don't wait. Do it tonight. Do it now. I mean, if you got paper out, start writing down now while I'm talking. You can go back and listen to this again later. But take a moment and address how each of these is going to be met if you win, if you actually succeed in that goal. Okay? It can even be a little thing. The next thing, the it factor. See, a lot of people think that winning is genetic, that it's literally, successful people are just designed that way. Do you know how wrong that is? Winning has nothing to do with genetics. It has nothing to do with the way that you were brought up. It has nothing to do with any of these factors. It comes down to choice. There's people in horrible, horrible, terrible situations who decide and they go and make it happen big for their family and generations to come. Now, on that note, I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But the big idea there, it is not a genetic factor. It's choice. This is something, if you guys can't read this here, it says, you become the average sum of the 5 people with whom you associate. Powerful, ain't it? Absolutely true. The 5 people that you associate with most, you're going to become a conglomerate of those people. So, we got to guard where we're getting our information, where we're getting our input. It's like, I mean, when we're raising kids, do you want your kids playing with a bunch of hoodlums? No way, because that eventually that's going to rub off. That's going to get to those kids also. So we're real careful with our kids, but we go along the same lines, and we probably just don't pay enough attention to it. So life is worthwhile. This again is Jim Rohn. Life is worthwhile if, number one, you learn. If you learn, if you're applying new knowledge all the time, okay, reading new books, watching new documentaries, getting new information, getting new mentors, new coaches, always learning new information. Now, this is big though, because we're in the information age, right? Or actually, we're past the information age. Now we're in what's called the attention age. See, we've got all the information that we need, but does the information do you any good if it's not applied? Never. So you've got to apply it. So that means you've got to try it. Okay, but you see all these like multi-level marketing companies and all this kind of stuff. And honestly, multi-level marketing is proven to be the easiest road to success. Did you guys know that? It's the easiest road to success. A close runner-up, I think, is insurance. But they call these things pipelines. So it's the easiest road. Yet, how many people does it really work for? Not many, right? Because of this next factor. If you stay. Right? You've got to stay. If you try something, you've got to stay. If you know it works, you've got to stay. It's sticking around. It's making sure that it happens. Making sure that you're giving the process long enough to work. So that's an important thing, is staying. The problem, today is most people quit too easily. We give up too easily. The second that something doesn't go right, or something doesn't quite match up, or something gets too difficult, or just common things that you see happening all the time, with gas prices going up and gas prices going down and all these different things, we give up too easily on the things that we want to do, so if we don't stay, you can't reap the rewards of whatever that had to offer. And then the last thing, you care. You've got to care enough. So for lack of knowledge, I want to talk about that just for a brief second, because we read that. How many people have heard that statement before? For lack of knowledge, people perish, right? Okay, so what do we interpret that to mean? Most commonly, it's this: if we don't gain the knowledge, then we'll perish. Then we won't have whatever transformation it was, life, death itself. For the lack of knowledge. But here's the thing: if you really get into the true Hebrew meaning, and the original text, it's more talking about applied knowledge. If you don't apply knowledge, it's for lack of applied knowledge, people perish. Because again, the information can only do so much. The information, but if it's not acted on you're done, right? So that's a big point to make there. The parable of the sower, we got to look at that in the big areas of our life, the things that really matter. Are we really looking at this from the right angle? Because in the parable of the sower, if you remember it, seed is sown, correct? Right. Okay, and then what happens? Some of it fell on top of the rocks, yep, and it was on unfertile ground, right? So unfertile ground is one of them. What's the next one?
Some of them went into the ground.
Okay, so some of it fell on fertile ground. Okay, and it turned into a seedling and thrived. Some of it was choked out by the thorns, or what we call the cares. Okay, so we're on track really good with an exercise program. We're doing great, and then we have family come into town. And the cares get in the way, or we lose our job, or we gas prices go up, or you go after all these common things, and bang, all of a sudden we're off track and we've lost course of what we wanted to see happen, right? So we call that the cares. And then the last thing is the birds. The birds come and pick off some of them. So, we're doing an exercise program that really, really works. And then somebody comes over and says, ooh, you know what? You really shouldn't do that program, or what's the purpose? There's no point in doing that or whatever. And we listen to the birds. And so the birds, we decide to follow the birds off in that direction. So that seed can't ever really be planted. So you've got to look at that in the important areas of your life and see how that plays in as well. Why win when everyone else is losing? That really comes, I think, plays into the birds. Because most people in society, you would see, we're on a downward spiral. We're sliding downhill. Everybody's getting bigger. Everybody's getting wider. Everybody's getting less energetic. Everybody's taking more drugs. Everybody's getting more surgeries. We see these things happen, so why win? I mean, everybody else is losing. Why should I be the one that wins? Well, how about why not? Do we need any more answer than that? It's like if every other chiropractor on the planet was failing, why wouldn't I want to? I mean, I would want to try that much harder. Because if you've got something that needs to be sown, you'd better try harder to make sure that that's sown. So why not? You've got to win because everybody else around you is depending on you. Generational curse, I wanted to look at that because, there is a factor that you need to consider here. And this is, again, a person makes their decision. But the problem I see comes when one person makes a decision that sends their life downhill. And then their children come in and they see what's happened in their parents and they see that, well, why try? And so they don't. And so it continues to go down that same path. But you see that happen, you see that change in situations like, who's seen that movie with Will Smith? What movie was that? Where he was walking around selling some computer system, some medical imaging device. Pursuit of Happiness, absolutely. If you guys haven't seen that movie, go rent the movie. Okay, complete. I mean, that was just a clear and perfect example of this in action, where a father who didn't have anything, he realized, yeah, it might be too late in my life to make a big, big difference, and no matter where you are, it might be too late to completely change your course and see a completely different path in your life. But if I could just make a big enough difference, then maybe my children will be on a different path. Just maybe. And then your children see what happened to you, and how hard you tried, and that might be enough just to show them that you can overcome anything. So, I mean, that generation, it does have a big factor in, but it still comes down to individual choice. So here's the secret formula for success. Believe it or not. Number 1, commitment. Number 2, habits. Number 3, lifestyle. It's that simple. It's in the definition. You've got to have enough commitment in order to make it a habit. How long does it take and how many repetitions does it take to make a habit? Research says about 19 times. Okay? So you've got to do whatever it is enough times or long enough until it becomes habit. When we were a kid, most of us probably fought brushing our teeth, right? But our parents kept making us do it until habit. You know, I've got a 4-year-old, and we read books with him. You know, we read books every night before he goes to bed. You know, and we did this, you know, all the way up until, I mean, we still do it, but, you know, at say 2 years old, you know, we would all of a sudden, you know, we'd try and put him to bed forgetting to read books. Oh, no. Well, I'm not going to bed without books. You know, you got to read books. Habit. You know, even at 2 years old, they've got habits set up. So you've got to do it long enough to create habits, and then when you make them habits, they automatically become lifestyle. So it's just about really coming back to that one word, commitment. That's the ultimate thing there. But on the same level, you have to have the right ingredients. Okay, you can't just, and I want to talk about this in terms of a cake, because if you want to bake a cake, you'd have to follow a recipe, right? You couldn't just, you know, you wouldn't just walk into the kitchen and grab any kind of food out of the refrigerator and throw it in and expect to get a cake out. Okay, you've got to have the right ingredients in there. In terms of calories in, calories out, the misapplication of thermodynamics, I want to talk about that just in terms of weight loss, again, because that's a big one. You know, that's one that for a lot of people that would solve a lot of problems, right? But we have this mentality that's been thrown into us that calories in and calories out is what makes all the difference. So if we want to lose weight, we've got to eat right and exercise, right? You got to exercise. Wow. So we've got to do those two things. And we think that for most, you know, that if we do those two things, we're going to lose weight. But here's the thing, that's not necessarily true. You've got to have more information than just that. If there's a toxicity issue, you can eat right and exercise all day long, and your body does not have the ability to burn off the fat because it's a closed system. Okay? The common laws of thermodynamics do not apply. You can't just increase the temperature and burn everything off. It's not the way it works. So you've got to look at all the factors involved there is the big idea. So baking a cake is more than just the ingredients, it's also the conditions, right? You've got to have the conditions correct. So here's the recipe. Look at this word quintessential. Your understanding of the word quintessential means absolutely essential, right? Okay, well, let's break this down. Having the nature of the pure and concentrated essence of a substance, the most perfect embodiment of something. Okay, so the most perfect embodiment of something. If you look at the roots here, the root is quint, that means a quintuplet or 5. Okay, essential means absolutely necessary, indispensable, according to any common dictionary. Okay, so this is just kind of interesting, and it may not have a ton of relevance there, but we go by what we call the 5 essentials of maximized living. And we use that, you know, you look at that quintessential 5 essentials, we have 5 essentials of maximized living. And the fact is, they're absolutely essential. And the reason why I want to point that out so clearly and make sure that that is hammered in is because how many people really follow through on all 5 of the essentials and look at them every day as an essential, you know, getting to the nature of pure and concentrated essence of substance as a human being and to be the perfect embodiment of the best that I can possibly be. But those things are essential. You can't work without them. So baking with the 5 essentials. Number 1, the baker. That's nerve supply. If you had all the right ingredients and you had the oven and it was well warmed up and you had the pans and the directions and everything laid out, but there was no baker, would you ever get a cake? No. That's what your nerve system does. Your nerve system is the baker. It's what makes everything work. You've got to have the nerve system under control, making sure that that happens. Now, how do we do that? You know, commonly, chiropractic. If anybody can find a better way to keep your nerve system working at 100% so that you got a good baker than chiropractic, please tell me. Let me know. Because I don't know of one in existence. You know, so unfortunately, as it is, chiropractic is an essential thing for life if we want to continue to function at our best and pure essence. Number 2, the ingredients. You got to have quality ingredients. You can't make a cake out of sawdust and cornmeal and Taco Bell meat, whatever it is, you know, and all these different things. You know, those are not quality ingredients. So you've got to have quality ingredients if you want to get a quality cake. You got to have the oven set right. That means optimum oxygen levels and lean muscle. Okay? you've got to have the environment right to be able to work those ingredients and be able to maintain those ingredients and make sure that they come out in the right form. That's what oxygen does. That's what exercise, how that has a factor in there. You got to have the love, right? Peace of mind and strong relationships. You know, that the equivalent there is the love for baking. You know, you've got to be at a, I mean, can you imagine trying to bake a cake if you were stressed out, you had 10 minutes to get to work, and your wife screamed at you, you need to bake a cake right now. You know, would you come out with a quality cake? No, but if you love that action and you love what you're doing, you know, you can actually make it work and come out the way that you want it. And then lastly, attention. If somebody comes by and spits in your bowl, or, you know, or sprays Windex in while they're cleaning the counter, or, you know, a bug flies into your bowl while you're making it, you see that as a problem? Okay, but that's what's happening all the time when we're exposed to all these toxins and all these medications that we're allowing into our cake. So we've got to look at each of these issues, and they have to be a fundamental component. So again, when we're looking at resolutions, see how they're addressing these different issues. If you can make these things strong enough, they'll happen. If you don't make them strong enough, they won't happen. So here's your war plan. Realize you're at war. That's the first thing. This is not just a simple decision of, well, I'm going to lose 15 pounds and, you know, I mean, it really won't make much of a difference. Guys, it makes a difference of years. If your idea is to start exercising so that you can get off of cholesterol medications, guys, it means the difference between living to 72 or maybe 82. That is 10 years that we're talking about. I mean, these are big, big issues. We can't look at them lightly. We're at war every single day. Every decision that we make, we're at war just to be able to maintain a good and purposeful existence. And then, you know, today is just a battle. It's, you know, every day is a battle. Tomorrow is going to be another battle. And yeah, we might win a battle for the next 3 or 4 days, but if we lose every battle after that, did we really get anywhere? No, we still lost the war. So those who fail to plan to fail. This is a real common quote here. You guys have probably heard it before, but it's absolute truth. If you don't have a plan, you've already failed. We can call it preemptive failure if there's no plan in place. It's destined to fail. So what will you do to address whatever your resolution is in regards to your revolution? Okay, what will you do? How will you address each of these 5 essentials? How will you address how it meets your fundamental needs? You've got to have those things laid out. If you can do that, and you can do that with your first simple resolution, and you can make that happen, now you go on to your next thing, and you make that happen. And you go to your next thing, and you make that happen. Can you see how this year could be your best year ever? But what happens if we don't do that? What happens if we go home tonight and we just, well, that was a good workshop. Well, that was a good lecture. And we don't change a thing. What happens? Right? Yep, we just coast. We continue that smooth coast downhill. You know, if we're not doing something, life is downhill. We've got to have the motivation. We've got to have the horsepower to be able to push it back uphill. So who are you fighting for? You know, looking at really what's the big purpose, you know, and I wanted to give you something more than just you're doing this for yourself. You've got to realize that you're doing this for more than just yourself. There's got to be a bigger purpose. In battle, in war, they're trained to do one thing. Protect the guy on your left, protect your guy on your right. If every single person does that, you know what happens? You win battles. If you fail to protect the people around you, you get a weak link. And if you have a weak link, what happens? It's done. What happens if you have hundreds or thousands of weak links? That's exactly what we have going on right now. We have hundreds of thousands of weak links. They're scattered everywhere. We have more weak links than we do strong links. And that's why we see the things happening that we see happening in finances, in relationships, in marriages, in health. That's the problem. We've got too many weak links. We've got more weak links than we do strong ones. So the idea here, you know, and what I'm trying to plant for you here is what we're trying to do through Maximized Living. What we're trying to do is create strong links out in the community. If we can create enough strong links, guess what happens? The chain gets stronger. As a community, we get stronger. So while the world focuses on this whole idea of one less, you see the Gardasil commercials, one less, and now the new flu shot commercials where Christy Yamaguchi is on there, talking about how, you're at risk and this person's at risk and everybody needs to get flu shots, because it's all about having one less person die from a serious condition called the flu. That's the kind of stuff that's going on. So everybody's focusing on one less. Well, we've been focusing on one less for years, for decades, and we've seen one less, one less, one less, one less, hundreds less, thousands less, tens of thousands less, millions less. We keep losing them faster and faster and faster. So we're not focusing on one less, we're focusing on one more. Let's get one more person leading a maximized life. One more person that's seeing changes actually happen. That's seeing the momentum, that's seeing their goals actually be met. That Rena, your goals are met in the next year and that you're completely transformed. And Larry, your goals are completely met and you're transformed in the next year. And Pam, you meet all your goals and you transform in the next year. And on and on and on. And just continuing to see that over and over and over again. And then what do you see happen? You see, Pam, all of the people around you, what do they start thinking? Ooh, something's good here. Yeah, I better find out what you're doing. And you know what? Now you go out and you disciple that person and you show them how to live a better life. You show them the simple tricks that they can do to completely transform their life. They'll never do it unless you do it first. Right. They'll never do it unless you do it first. You've got to be the one that shows them how to do it. Words mean nothing. Literally. Especially today in the attention age, words mean nothing. You can talk and talk and talk and talk all day long. But if you can't show what I want, I'm not getting it. You better be able to show it. But it is your moral and ethical responsibility to do that. Do you see that? I mean, do you guys see that? It's your moral and ethical responsibility, not to yourself, but to the people around you. Because they are watching you to see if you change. They're looking at you to see if you really transform. Because if you do, their life is going to be changed because of it. That's the definition of success. So I encourage you guys, do not let this slide as a simple thing. A simple resolution. It's just, we come into something like this just thinking, well, it's just a resolution and I probably don't even have one. Everything's fine in my life. Nothing drives me more crazy than when people say I'm fine. That should bother you when people say I'm fine. We don't need to be fine. We need to be great. We need to be fantastic. We need to be tremendous, spectacular, fantabulous, whatever word you want to use. That's where life should be. Not just fine, not just mediocre. But it's up to us. It's individual choice. I'm going to ask you guys, before you leave tonight, people are depending on you to be able to show them and get them the information. I mean, I'm going to plant this out in a little bit more detail, okay? Because all I can do is be abrupt. That's what has to happen nowadays. Casey, if you don't tell the guy at work next to you what you have seen and what you've known and what you've learned about the nervous system, about exercise, about diet, nutrition, whatever, if you don't tell him, and because you think he's perfectly fine, yet he's sitting at home at night pouring down medications and pills and on the verge of divorce with his wife and thinking about suicide, who killed that guy? You did. Because you had the information you didn't share. Those neighbor kids that their parents aren't feeding them the right foods, but you don't really want to talk to them because that might be uncomfortable. Guys, who cares if it's uncomfortable? Those children's lives depend on you talking. They depend on you opening your mouth and talking to them and letting them know what's going on. This cannot be taken lightly anymore. It's on my part, I've done my moral and ethical responsibility to make sure that you guys know it's your moral and ethical responsibility. It's got to be done. You've got to be leading people towards a better life, because unfortunately, you've been placed in this seat to have the information and to know. God put you in this seat for a reason, to have the information and to know. So there's some opportunities that you have to be able to transfer that responsibility. We've got a workshop next Monday, the 5 Essentials workshop at 6:30. Next week, next Wednesday, we got a Patient Appreciation Day. Who in here knows people that have a spine and still breathe oxygen? Okay. So I'll ask the more uncomfortable question. Who in here has referred in some of those people that have spines and breathe oxygen? Who in here knows people that you haven't yet talked to about it? Guess what? It's time to talk to them. I don't go and get my hair cut without talking to somebody about chiropractic. It doesn't matter if I'm in Indianapolis visiting my parents. I'm talking to the hairstylist about chiropractic, and I'm finding them a chiropractor in their area to get them into. There's only one thing that's going to make this mission work, and it's you guys. It's the patients. We have 400 doctors that are trying desperately to change our communities individually. But I can talk to so many people, but if all I'm doing is sowing seed on unfertile ground all day long, we aren't getting a crop. It's not going anywhere. The only way it happens is if it falls on fertile ground, and that, can you imagine the kind of wave that happens if every single one of us, if 400 doctors seeing a couple hundred patients could get all those couple hundred patients to be able to go out and just reach one more person, what would happen? That's what, 400,000? And then one more person, that's another 400,000? And then those one persons, how quickly would we change things? Overnight. Just like that. Medicine would start to crumble immediately. Next week you would see stock prices plummeting for these drug companies, who, by the way, are the only ones that are weathering this storm. Yeah, drug companies are the best stocks out there right now. That ought to piss you off. It pisses me off. Because throughout all this mess, people don't stop dying. They keep on dying. So if you can't get them to one of those, get them to the Maximized Living Makeover. Who in here hasn't been to a Maximized Living Makeover? All right, guess what? You're signing up. If you haven't been to one, sign up. We got it January 31st. If you have to work and you can't get out of it, bring me a doctor's note. Fair enough? Show me that you got a reason why you can't be there. Guys, I can't play it lightly on what happens from this day forward. Times have gotten to that point. We can't play it lightly anymore. Things have got to happen. If you want the DVD, we got the DVD. We're going to be having them. You guys can buy the DVDs for $5. Buy a couple copies, give them out to somebody, transfer them around, whatever, so that they can hear this information too. If you bring a guest to any of the events from this point forward, we're recording all of them so that we can get the information online, we can get it on the internet, we can get them out on DVDs, we can hand them out at events, we can, it's going to give us a lot of leverage, but if you bring somebody, you'll get a copy for free. So do you think it's worthwhile to bring somebody to the next event? For that person, it is. For that person, I guarantee it is. So I'm going to ask you guys one last thing before we leave here. I'm going to give you one of these sheets here. Everybody put down somebody that you know that needs help. People out there, they're waiting for you to talk. Larry just sent his sister in. Where does your sister live? Castleberry. How far away is that? About an hour and a half. And his sister in Castleberry is driving down here once a week so that she can get life-changing chiropractic care to improve her nerve system and improve her life. That's powerful stuff. Yet, I know a lot of times we hesitate to even talk to our neighbors and get our neighbors who live right next door, right down the street, to come in. I know, Shirley, you got your entire family coming. And beyond. We've got like lineages of the Danford family coming in. I mean, children, grandchildren, the whole bit. You know, so it's just, and families get transformed that way. That's the way it happens. You know, so if they're not in this area, it doesn't matter. We'll find them a doctor in that area. You know, so if you guys have somebody that's in another area, at another, you know, in another city, in Houston and in Orlando, anywhere else, we've got these cards up here now. You can take these, you can mail them to them, and it's got instructions on the back of the card of how to find a Maximize Living office in their area. Okay, so you can get them involved in the mission to start changing things in this country. If we get enough of a wave going, something is going to happen, and something is happening right now. You know, so we're on that verge. We just need help. So, guys, I want to go ahead.
I'll bring this back to you, Dr. Michael. I don't remember his name in my head.
Okay. You want to hang on to it until you get somebody's name in your head?
I'll bring it back to you.
Bring it back to me? Okay. Okay. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.